My name's Mike Flanagan. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at Avidity Biosciences, and we're working on FSHD, Facioscapulohumeral Muscular Dystrophy. And we've been working on it for over 8 years now, really trying to break into this devastating disease and trying to make a, profound impact in people's lives. Not only people who are living with FSHD, but of course, these affect the family because it's a autosomal dominant inheritable disease. So really, not only affects, of course, the person living with it, but also the whole family. So FSHD is a relentless, progressive, devastating neuromuscular disease that really hits people in the prime of their lives. Kind of hits people oftentimes recognized late teens or early 20s when people are kind of entering college or in college. It affects about 50 to 80,000 people in the US and EU. So one of the most common forms of neuromuscular disease. And what happens based on the name is fascio. So that's kind of the face. It kind of starts, oftentimes for patients, you'll see a muscle weakening in the face. And why the FSHD Society has kind of this orange as a smile, because people find it pretty hard to smile because it affects the muscles in the face. And then it goes into the shoulders. So there's oftentimes difficulty raising your hands above your head, being able to comb your hair, things like putting luggage into an overhead in the airplane, things like that, that would really affects that. And then it'll move down into the legs and starts affecting the legs. And, somewhere around 20% of people affected by FSHD are wheelchair bound by around 50 or so. And many of them lose mobility in a lot of different ways. It is a genetic disease, often found in families. Sometimes it's not really recognized, and then you kind of retrospectively go like, oh, Uncle Bob, yeah, he kind of tripped a lot or had a foot drop. Oh, and then it kind of like unravels in that way. So it is a family-related disease because it's autosomal dominant, so multiple generations can be affected. Although at the same time, about 20 to 30% of people living with FSHD, it's just spontaneous mutation. So there's no family history. They are just diagnosed with it. And so it can happen kind of both ways. It's caused by this really devious transcription factor that shouldn't ever be turned on in adults. So this transcription factor, which a transcription factor is something that regulates all kinds of different genes in your body. And this transcription factor is called DUX4. And what's really interesting about DUX4 is it's only turned on in a very short period of time during embryogenesis as kind of cells split as you form a baby. So it's just this small snapshot in time, and then it's shut off for the rest of your life, except for in just a few different cells. But it is basically silenced for the rest of your life. And what happens is that this gene DUX4 gets turned on, and it's not supposed to be turned on as an adult, as you're kind of, growing up and becoming a teen. It's turned on constantly. And what happens is that essentially just poisons the muscles. So over that time period, when you're young, you may not really see it as much because your muscles are able to grow. But as you get towards an adult where you have less kind of muscle growth and things like that, you start seeing the effects of this DUX4, which is, again, a poison to muscles. There are zero therapeutics for this disease. There's nothing out there, nothing's been approved. So really the management is managing symptoms which range from pain, fatigue, of course, having aiding inability, mobility kind of aids, whether they're braces or walkers or wheelchair. So it's really just treating the symptoms. So Del-brax is this really interesting technology. And it's this marriage between two known kind of therapeutic modalities. So one is an antibody. So you have an antibody that's been used, and there's hundreds of antibodies that are currently on the market. And then another one's called a silencing RNA. And what we've done is to marry these two technologies together into one therapeutic. So the antibody provides the address or the way to get to the muscle. And then once it gets to the muscle, then it gets sucked into the muscle cell, and the silencing RNA is what silences DUX4, which again is that poison to the muscle. So the silencing RNA completely knocks out or silences the gene that you don't want expressed. And it's this technology that allows you to do that. And it's really this ability to target specifically the underlying cause of the disease that's so powerful for this AOC technology. We are super excited. I mean, these are unprecedented data that we've seen. And what we've seen is across the board, starting from kind of the molecular level. So we can see the effect in the cell itself, all the way to the functional level. And the functional level, which people are probably most interested in, is that we saw effects on mobility. So 10-meter walk run. How fast can you walk or run over 10 meters? Time up and go, which is kind of a more complex kind of movement where you have to get out of a chair, walk, and then turn around a cone and then walk back to the chair and sit down. So we saw changes in that. We saw changes in quantitative muscle strength, which is a measurement of a bunch of different muscles across the body, and we saw improvements on that. I told you that it was reachable, like you're affected by your shoulder and being able to reach. We saw changes in the ability to reach around you in kind of 3D space. So these were really exciting where no one's seen these effects before. These data are exciting, right? And so our mission is to get it to people living with FSHD as fast as possible. So we have two different pathways to do that. One pathway is an accelerated pathway. So we're hoping to get that accelerated pathway, have data in 2026, and then hopefully file what's called a BLA for a biologics license application, which allows you to then sell the drug or provide the drug more broadly to patients. We expect that in that second half of 2026. So that's the one hand. That's like an accelerated process to get it to patients as fast as possible. Then in conjunction and concurrent with that, we have what's called a full approval process that allows us to ensure that our accelerated process is correct and that it has the activity that we would expect. So it has more data that's involved in that, but the accelerated process provides all the data that someone would need to go like, you know what, this drug works, it's going to benefit people. And the FDA wants to make sure that they are able to get it to people as fast as possible also. One of the things I think for Avidity as a whole is that FSHD is just one of our exciting programs. We have two other programs. One is called Del-brax for myotonic dystrophy. So some of the people on this might be interested in myotonic dystrophy. And again, it's using the same technology, the same antibody, and there we target DMPK, which is the underlying cause of disease. Saw amazing results there. The other one that's super exciting is Duchenne muscular dystrophy for boys and young men with exon 44 aberrant expression. And what we see there are, again, amazing data where we're seeing about 32% of normal dystrophin production. And just to put that in perspective, dystrophin production in kind of a person who's a carrier of this gene, so a mom, would have probably about 50% dystrophin production. We're at 32%. So we're hoping to really see a profound impact in those people's lives. And I think finally, our vision for the company and everybody who works there is really to make a profound impact in people's lives using this RNA therapeutic technology. And we hope that these are going to be great opportunities for people to address these rare diseases. And we have a lot more things in the pipeline.